Jake Morrison sat alone at the far end of the bar, his fingers wrapped around a glass of cheap whiskey as he watched the crowd through the smoky air. The Andromeda trade station was always busy, but today felt different. Aliens from dozens of worlds filled the cantina, but they all kept their distance from him. A group of tall blue Xanthari warriors whispered to each other near the entrance. Their 4 eyes kept looking his way before they quickly turned back to their drinks. At another table, 3 Kronak soldiers sat perfectly still. These were the same creatures that other species called unstoppable killing machines. Yet they had not moved since Jake walked in 20 minutes ago. The bartender was a Zephyrian with 6 arms. His name was Clicks, and right now all 6 of his hands were shaking as he cleaned the same glass over and over. When Jake held up his empty glass, Clicks nearly dropped everything. He moved as far away as possible while still being able to reach the bottle. "Another whiskey?" Jake said in a calm voice. Clicks poured the drink without looking at Jake's face. Some of the liquid spilled on the bar because his hands would not stop shaking. He slid the glass across the metal surface and backed away fast. Jake took a sip and let his mind wander back 3 years. Back to Kepler 442b. Back to the day that changed everything. The colonists on Kepler 442b were just farmers and their families. They grew food and minded their own business. Then the Kronak came, an entire assault battalion, 200 of their best warriors. They wanted the planet for its rare metals. The colonists were just in the way. Jake had been visiting the colony on leave from the Marines. He was supposed to be resting, taking a break from the war. Instead, he found himself standing between innocent people and an army. The evacuation ships needed 3 days to reach the colony. Jake had his rifle, some explosives, and his training. That was it. 200 Kronak against 1 human. The Kronak were big, nearly 8 feet tall with thick armor and energy weapons. Other species had fought them for centuries and usually lost. They were fast, strong, and smart. But Jake had something they did not expect. He knew how they thought. Jake had studied them during his time in the Marines. He knew they attacked in groups of 5. He knew they always tried to flank their enemies. He knew they got angry when their pack leaders died. For 3 days, Jake moved through the colony like a ghost. He set traps in buildings. He picked off scouts from long range. He used their own tactics against them. When they tried to flank him, he was already gone. When they rushed his position, they found only explosives. The Kronak had never faced anything like him. Humans were new to the galaxy. Most aliens thought they were weak because they had no natural armor or claws. They were wrong. By the end of the first day, Jake had killed 30 Kronak. By the end of the second day, 50 more were dead. The survivors started to panic. These were elite warriors who had conquered 12 worlds. Now they were hiding from a single human. On the 3rd day, the evacuation ships arrived. Every colonist made it to safety. Jake walked out of the colony covered in dust and blood. Behind him lay the bodies of 167 Kronak warriors. Only 33 had survived, and they ran away as soon as they saw the human ships coming. The story spread fast through the galaxy. A single human had destroyed an entire Kronak assault battalion, the same Kronak that made other species run in terror. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know more about humans. Jake became famous, but not in a good way. They called him the Reaper of Vega Prime. Pirates would surrender when they heard his name. Slavers would abandon their cargo rather than fight him. Even governments started hiring him for jobs that required serious violence. He became the face of humanity in the galaxy. The problem was it was a face covered in blood. A shadow fell across Jake's table. He looked up to see a figure in a dark hood. The stranger was tall and thin, but Jake could not tell what species they were. "Jake Morrison," the stranger said in a voice that could have been male or female. "I have a job for you." "I'm not interested," Jake replied without looking up. "The pay is 1 million credits." Now Jake looked up. 1 million credits was enough to buy a small ship and disappear forever. "What's the job?" The stranger sat down across from him. Other aliens in the cantina moved even further away. "A diplomat's daughter has been kidnapped. Lisa Chen, age 22. She was taken by pirates 3 days ago. Jake knew about pirates. They usually wanted ransom money, not a fight. Sounds simple enough. Why do you need me? Because she's being held at Black Rock Station. Jake's blood went cold. Black Rock Station was run by Captain Vex Thornfield, the worst pirate in the galaxy. It was built inside a dead asteroid and protected by 3,000 criminals from 17 different worlds. It was a fortress that had never been broken. You want me to attack Black Rock Station? Jake asked. I want you to get the girl back alive, the stranger said. How you do it is up to you. Jake drank the rest of his whiskey. 1 million credits, enough to start over somewhere far away. But Black Rock Station was suicide, even for him. There's something else, the stranger continued. Lisa Chen's father is Dr. Alan Pierce. He speaks for humanity in the Galactic Council. That changed things. The Galactic Council was deciding whether humans deserved a seat at the big table or if they were too dangerous to trust. Dr. Pierce was fighting for humanity's future. If his daughter died because no one would save her, it would destroy any chance humans had of joining galactic society. Jake thought about the colonists on Kepler 442b. Innocent people who needed protection. Lisa Chen was just another innocent person in danger. The only difference was that saving her might help humanity instead of making things worse. Half the money up front, Jake said. The stranger slid a credit chip across the table. Done. Jake stood up and finished his drink. Around the cantina, aliens watched him with fear in their eyes. They had heard the stories. They knew what the human could do. What they did not know was that Jake Morrison was tired of being the monster in everyone's nightmares. Maybe it was time to be something else. Maybe it was time to be a hero. The stolen cargo ship Starfall drifted toward Black Rock Station like any other trader looking for business. Jake Morrison sat in the pilot's chair, watching the massive asteroid grow larger on his screen. The station was carved into the rock, itself with metal towers and weapon platforms sticking out like spikes. That place gives me the creeps, said Bobby Martinez from the co-pilot seat. Bobby was small and nervous with quick fingers that never stopped moving. He was the best hacker Jake had ever met, but he jumped at loud noises. It should, replied Zara Quinn from behind them. She was cleaning her pistol for the 3rd time that day. Zara was half human and half Altarian, which made her faster and stronger than most people. It also made her angry at the world. 3,000 killers live in that rock. Rex Kane laughed from the back of the ship. He was big and loud with scars covering his arms. Rex loved explosives more than most people loved their families. 3,000 targets, you mean? This is going to be fun. Jake ignored them and focused on the approach. Black Rock Station had sensors that could detect weapons and military equipment. The Starfall was supposed to be carrying farming supplies to the outer colonies. If the pirates found Jake's hidden weapons, the mission would end before it started. Incoming message, Bobby said, his voice shaking a little. They want to know our cargo and destination. Tell them we're carrying seed packets and soil supplements for Kepler Station, Jake said. Nothing interesting. Bobby's fingers danced over his keyboard. Seconds later, a rough voice came through the speakers. Cargo ship Starfall, you are cleared for docking bay 7. Any trouble and we space you, understand? Understood, Jake replied calmly. The docking bay was dark and smelled like oil and rust. Pirates and criminals walked around the loading area checking cargo and collecting taxes from traders. Most of them were armed with energy rifles or plasma pistols. Jake and his team walked down the cargo ramp carrying sample cases that looked like normal trade goods. Inside the cases were weapons, explosives, and equipment they would need. Bobby had his computer gear. Zara had extra ammunition. Rex had enough explosives to blow a hole in the station's hull. A tall Vargan pirate approached them. Vargans looked like wolves that walked on 2 legs, with gray fur and yellow eyes. This one wore a red scarf around his neck, which meant he was an officer. What's your business here? The Vargan asked, showing his sharp teeth. Looking to buy some rare metals, Jake said. Heard this was the place to find things that fell off transport ships. The Vargan laughed. It is. But first you pay the docking fee. 100 credits per person. Jake handed over the credits. Without arguing, pirates expected people to be afraid of them. Arguing would draw attention. They walked deeper into the station through corridors carved from solid rock. The air was thick and hot. Lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows on the walls. Pirates from dozens of species filled the hallways. Some were drunk, others were planning their next robbery. All of them carried weapons. "This place is a maze," Bobby whispered as they passed a group of blue-skinned Zenthari mercenaries. "That's the point," Jake replied quietly. "Hard to attack if you don't know the layout." They found rooms in a cheap hotel near the station's center. The walls were thin and the beds were hard, but it gave them a base to work from. Jake spread out the station plans that Bobby had stolen from the Trade Authority's files. "Lisa Chen is being held in the detention level," Jake said, pointing to the deepest part of the station. "Maximum security, 20 guards at least." "How do we get there without fighting half the station?" Zara asked. "We don't," Jake said. "But first we need to find out exactly where she is and how many guards are watching her." Bobby cracked his knuckles and opened his computer. "Give me 2 hours and I'll have their security system mapped." Jake nodded and stood up. "I'm going to scout the area. Stay here and stay quiet." He walked alone through the station's main corridor. Pirates and criminals moved around him, but most paid him no attention. Jake was dressed like a trader and carried himself like someone who belonged there. That changed when he reached the detention level. A group of Kronak guards stood at the security checkpoint. These were not the elite warriors Jake had fought on, Kepler 442b, but they were still dangerous. One of them looked at Jake carefully as he approached. "Hold on," the Kronak said, stepping forward. "I know you." Jake's hand moved slowly toward his hidden pistol. The Kronak's 4 eyes studied his face, and Jake saw the moment when recognition hit. "You're him," the Kronak whispered. "The Reaper. The one who killed the assault battalion." The other guards turned to look. Fear spread across their faces like a disease. Jake had hoped to stay hidden longer, but that plan was over now. "Where is the human girl?" Jake asked in a calm voice. The Kronak guards looked at each other. These were professional soldiers, trained to fight and die without fear. But they had all heard the stories about what happened on Kepler 442b. They knew what this human could do. One of them reached for his weapon. Jake moved faster than they expected, grabbing the guard's arm and twisting it until bones broke. The guard screamed and dropped his rifle. "I asked you a question," Jake said, still holding the broken arm. "Where is Lisa Chen?" "Level 5. Another," guard said quickly. "Cell block D, please don't kill us." Jake let go of the injured guard and stepped back. Smart choice. But as he turned to leave, alarms started ringing throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors and a voice echoed from speakers in the walls. "Attention all station personnel. We have a security breach in detention. The human known as the Reaper is on the station. Bounty of 50,000 credits for his capture, dead or alive." Jake smiled grimly as he heard feet running in the corridors above. Pirates were already moving to hunt him down. The plan had been to get in quietly, rescue the girl, and get out without anyone knowing he was there. Now the entire station knew Jake Morrison was here. 3,000 criminals were about to find out why the galaxy feared humans. The hunt was about to begin. Jake Morrison moved through the dark corridors like a shadow. The alarms were still ringing and red lights flashed everywhere. He could hear boots running on metal floors as pirates searched for him. They were hunting in groups, which was smart. It was also exactly what Jake expected them to do. He pressed himself against the wall as 6 Zenthari mercenaries ran past. Their blue skin made them easy to spot in the red emergency lighting. Jake waited until they were gone, then slipped into a maintenance tunnel that Bobby had found on the station plans. The tunnel was narrow and hot. Jake crawled through pipes and cables toward the power control room. If he could cut power to certain sections, it would slow down the search teams and give him an advantage in the dark. His radio buzzed quietly in his ear. "Jake, this is Bobby. Where are you?" Moving toward the power station, Jake whispered back. "What's your status?" "We're still in the hotel room, but not for long. I can see armed groups moving through the corridors. They're going room by room." Get to the backup meeting point, Jake ordered. Stay hidden until I call for you. Jake reached the power control room and found 2 guards outside. They were Vargan pirates, nervous and jumpy. Their wolf-like ears kept turning toward every sound in the corridor. I don't like this, one of them said. The Reaper killed 200 Kronak. What are we supposed to do against him? Captain Thornfield says 50,000 credits, the other replied. That's enough to buy our own ship. Not if we're dead, the first guard said. Jake smiled in the darkness. Fear was spreading through the station faster than the search teams could move. That was good. Scared enemies made mistakes. He dropped down from a ceiling vent behind the guards. Before they could turn around, Jake had knocked both of them unconscious with quick strikes to their necks. Vargans were tough, but they had the same pressure points as most humanoid species. Inside the power room, Jake found the main control board. He did not want to shut down all power to the station. That would hurt innocent people and make it harder for him to complete his mission. Instead, he carefully selected which areas to darken. First, he cut power to the detention level except for the emergency lights. That would make it easier to move around down there. Then he shut down power to 3 different sections on the upper levels. The search teams would waste time checking those areas, while Jake moved toward his real target. His radio crackled again. Jake, it's Zara. We've got problems. A squad of Kronak soldiers just entered our corridor. Rex wants to blow them up. Negative, Jake said quickly. Stay hidden. Let them pass. Too late, came Rex's voice. Here we go. Jake heard the explosion through the walls of the station. Rex had used one of his smaller charges, but it was still loud enough to shake dust from the ceiling. Now the pirates would know that Jake was not working alone. Rex report, Jake said into his radio. 4 Kronak down, Rex replied, sounding happy about it. But now they know we're here. Might want to hurry up with the rescue mission. Jake left the power room and headed toward the detention level. The corridors were darker now, with only emergency lights providing dim red illumination. He could hear confused shouts from the search teams as they tried to figure out why the lights had gone out. 2 levels down, Jake found his first real challenge. A squad of 10 pirates had set up a checkpoint at the entrance to the detention area. They had energy weapons and were watching all approaches carefully. Jake studied them from the shadows. There were 4 different species in the group, which meant they would not work together very well. Vargans liked to attack in packs. Zenthari preferred to flank their enemies. Hegemony soldiers followed orders exactly. Kronak fought with brutal force. He pulled out a small device that Bobby had given him. It was a sound generator that could mimic different alien languages. Jake set it to make Vargan distress calls and threw it down a side corridor. Help, the device called in the Vargan language. The human is here. He's killing everyone. 3 of the Vargan guards ran toward the sound just as Jake had hoped. That left 7 pirates at the checkpoint. Still too many for a direct attack. Jake took out another device, this one set to Zenthari. He threw it in the opposite direction. Emergency, it called in their language. Backup needed in Section 12. The 4 Zenthari guards looked at each other, then ran toward the false emergency call. Now only 3 guards remained at the checkpoint. Jake could handle 3. He moved silently behind them, using the shadows created by the emergency lighting. The first guard was a Kronak with his back turned. Jake grabbed him from behind and applied pressure to his neck until the alien went limp. The second guard was Hegemony, tall and thin with gray skin. Jake hit him in the back of the head with the butt of his pistol. The alien dropped without a sound. The third guard turned around just as Jake reached him. This one was human, which surprised Jake. The pirate reached for his weapon, but Jake was faster. He grabbed the man's wrist and twisted until the gun fell to the floor. Please, the human pirate said. I have a family. Then you picked the wrong job, Jake replied. He knocked the man unconscious and left him tied up with the others. The detention level was almost empty now. Most of the guards had been called away to search for Jake in other parts of the station. Only a few remained to watch the prisoners. Jake found cell block D and saw her immediately. Lisa Chen sat in a small metal cell, looking scared but not hurt. She was young, with dark hair and intelligent eyes. When she saw Jake approaching, she backed away from the bars. "Who are you?" she asked. "I'm here to get you out," Jake said, working on the electronic lock with one of Bobby's tools. "Are you with the pirates?" "No," Jake said, as the lock clicked. "Open." "I'm with your father." Lisa's eyes went wide. "You're the one they're all afraid of. The Reaper." Jake helped her out of the cell. "Right now, I'm just someone who wants to get you home safely." They started moving toward the exit when Jake's radio burst to life with Bobby's panicked voice. "Jake, we've got major problems. Captain Thornfield just announced that if you don't surrender in 10 minutes, he's going to start spacing prisoners. He says he has 20 civilians from the last merchant ship they captured." Jake stopped walking. Lisa looked at him with growing fear. "What does that mean?" she asked. Jake's jaw tightened. Spacing meant throwing people out of airlocks into the vacuum of space. It was a slow, terrible way to die. "It means the mission just got more complicated," Jake said. He had come here to rescue one person. Now he would have to save 21 people and fight his way through an entire space station to do it. The galaxy was about to see why humans were the most dangerous species in known space. Jake Morrison stood in the empty corridor with Lisa Chen beside him. The station's speakers crackled to life again with Captain Thornfield's rough voice. "Attention, human. You have 8 minutes now. Surrender yourself, or I start throwing people into space. Starting with the children." Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "You can't let him kill those people." "I won't," Jake said. He spoke into his radio. "Bobby, I need the location of those prisoners, and I need it now." "Working on it." Bobby's voice came back, shaky with stress. "The station's computer system is more complex than I thought. Give me 3 minutes." "We don't have 3 minutes," Jake replied. He looked at Lisa. "Can you handle a weapon?" "I've done target shooting," she said. "But I've never shot at a person." Jake handed her a small plasma pistol. "Stay behind me. Don't shoot unless I tell you to. If something happens to me, find my team and get off this station." They moved quickly through the detention level toward the main corridors. Jake could hear voices echoing from different directions as search teams continued hunting for him. The explosions and missing guards had made the pirates more desperate and more dangerous. "Jake," Bobby's voice crackled through the radio. "I found them. The prisoners are being held in Cargo Bay 12, upper level. But that's right next to the command center." "Of course it is," Jake said grimly. Captain Thornfield was not stupid. He had put the prisoners exactly where Jake would have to fight through the most guards to reach them. "There's more," Bobby continued. "I'm seeing massive troop movements. Thornfield is pulling guards from all over the station. He's setting up a trap." Jake and Lisa reached a lift that would take them to the upper levels. As the doors opened, Jake saw 2 Xanthari guards inside. They were just as surprised to see him. The first guard reached for his weapon. Jake moved faster, grabbing the alien's wrist and twisting until bones broke. The guard screamed and dropped his rifle. The second guard tried to call for help, but Jake silenced him with a quick strike to the throat. "Are they dead?" Lisa asked, looking pale. "Unconscious," Jake said, as he dragged the guards out of the lift. "But they'll have bad headaches when they wake up." The lift rose toward the upper levels. Jake checked his weapons and equipment. He had 2 pistols, a rifle, 4 grenades, and various tools that Bobby had given him. Against 3,000 pirates, it did not seem like much. "Why are you doing this?" Lisa asked as they rode up. "You could have just taken me and left. Why risk your life for strangers?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "Because that's what humans do. We protect people who can't protect themselves." The lift doors opened onto chaos. The upper level was full of armed pirates running in different directions. Some were setting up defensive positions. Others were moving weapons and equipment. All of them looked scared. Jake and Lisa slipped out of the lift and into a side corridor. Through the walls, they could hear Captain Thornfield's voice giving orders to his lieutenants. "I want every approach to Cargo Bay 12 covered," Thornfield was saying. "When the human comes for the prisoners, we kill him. Simple as that." Jake smiled grimly. The pirate captain was thinking like a military commander, which was good. Military tactics were predictable. Pirates who fought like soldiers could be beaten by someone who knew how soldiers thought. "Bobby," Jake whispered into his radio. "I need you to do something for me. Can you access the station's atmospheric controls?" "Maybe," Bobby replied. "What do you have in mind?" "I need you to flood sections 8 through 12 with sleeping gas. Just enough to make people drowsy, not enough to kill them." "That's going to take time," Bobby said. "And I'll have to physically access the environmental controls. They're not connected to the main computer." "Then get moving," Jake ordered. "Rex, Zara, I need a distraction. Something big enough to draw guards away. From Cargo Bay 12. "I've got just the thing," Rex's voice came back, sounding excited. "Remember that fuel depot we passed on level 3? I can make it go boom." "Do it," Jake said. "But give us 5 minutes to get in position first." Jake and Lisa moved through maintenance tunnels toward Cargo Bay 12. The tunnels were hot and narrow, filled with pipes and electrical cables. Lisa was breathing hard, but she kept up without complaining. They reached a ventilation grate that looked down into the cargo bay. Jake could see 21 prisoners sitting on the floor, surrounded by 15 guards from different species. The prisoners looked scared and tired. Some were humans from merchant ships. Others were aliens who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Jake," came Bobby's voice through the radio. "I'm at the environmental controls. Ready when you are." "Rex," Jake called softly. "Status report." "Charges are set," Rex replied. "This is going to be spectacular." Jake counted down from 10. At 0, an explosion rocked the entire station. Emergency alarms started ringing again, and Jake could hear shouting from the corridors as guards ran toward the blast. "Now, Bobby," Jake said. Within seconds, a thin gas began flowing through the ventilation system into Cargo Bay 12. The guards started looking drowsy and confused. Some sat down heavily. Others leaned against walls for support. Jake kicked out the ventilation grate and dropped into the cargo bay. Lisa followed, landing less gracefully, but managing to stay on her feet. "Everyone stay calm," Jake announced to the prisoners. "I'm here to get you out." One of the guards, a Kronak who was fighting off the effects of the gas, reached for his weapon. Jake shot him in the shoulder with a stun blast that knocked him unconscious without permanent damage. The other guards were too drowsy to fight effectively. Jake and Lisa quickly tied them up with cable from the cargo bay's loading equipment. "Who are you?" asked an older human woman among the prisoners. "Someone who doesn't like pirates," Jake replied as he worked on breaking their restraints. The cargo bay doors suddenly burst open. Captain Thornfield stood there with 20 armed pirates behind him. The Vargan captain was huge, even for his species, with gray fur marked by battle scars and yellow eyes full of rage. "The famous Reaper," Thornfield snarled, showing his sharp teeth. "You've caused me a lot of trouble, human." Jake stepped in front of the prisoners, his weapon ready. "Let these people go. Your fight is with me." "My fight is with your entire species," Thornfield replied. "Humans think they're so special. Time to prove you bleed just like everyone else." The pirate captain raised his plasma rifle and aimed it at Jake's chest. Around him, his soldiers did the same. Jake looked at 21 frightened faces behind him, then at 20 weapons pointed at his chest. The odds were not good, but sometimes humans did impossible things when innocent lives were at stake. "Lisa," Jake said quietly, "when I move, you get these people out of here." "What about you?" she asked. Jake smiled grimly. "I'm about to show them why the galaxy fears humans." Jake Morrison moved before anyone could react. He rolled to the side as 20 plasma rifles fired at once, their energy beams lighting up the cargo bay like deadly fireworks. The spot where he had been standing turned into melted metal. He came up behind a stack of cargo containers and returned fire. His first shot hit a Zenthari pirate in the chest, sending him crashing into the wall. His second shot took down a Vargan who was trying to flank him. "Spread out," Captain Thornfield roared. "Surround him. He's just one human." But Jake was not fighting like one human. He was fighting like something the galaxy had never seen before. While the pirates tried to organize their attack, Jake was already moving. He threw a grenade into their formation, forcing them to scatter. Then he used the confusion to get closer. Lisa was helping the prisoners move toward the exit. An older man had trouble walking, and a young girl was crying with fear. Lisa spoke to them calmly, keeping them together while Jake fought. "Bobby," Jake called into his radio while ducking behind cover. "I need another distraction." "Powers, going down in sections 4 and 5, Bobby replied. "That should pull some guards away from you." Jake popped up from behind a container and shot 2 more pirates. A Kronak soldier charged at him with a vibroblade, screaming a battle cry. Jake sidestepped the attack and used the alien's own momentum to send him crashing into a wall. "Impossible," one of the pirates whispered. "How is he doing this?" "Because we're human," Lisa said as she passed them, helping an injured prisoner walk. "And humans don't give up." Captain Thornfield was getting angry. His careful ambush was falling apart. Half his soldiers were down and the human was still fighting. Worse, other pirates throughout the station were starting to panic. They could hear the battle over the communication system. "Enough," Thornfield snarled. He grabbed a rocket launcher from one of his fallen soldiers. "I don't care if I blow up half the cargo bay." Jake saw the weapon and knew he was in trouble. The rocket would kill him, and probably some of the prisoners too. He had seconds. "To act, Rex," Jake spoke into his radio. "I need that big explosion now." "Which one?" Rex replied. "I've got 3 different charges ready to go." "All of them," Jake said. The station shook like it was coming apart. Rex had blown the main power generator, the fuel depot, and the weapon, storage all at the same time. Emergency lights flickered and died. The gravity generator stuttered, making everyone feel suddenly light. In the darkness and confusion, Jake moved like a ghost. He tackled Captain Thornfield before the pirate could fire his rocket launcher. They rolled across the floor, fighting for control of the weapon. Thornfield was bigger and stronger, but Jake was faster and smarter. He used the Vargan's own strength against him, redirecting the alien's attacks and looking for weak spots. When Thornfield tried to bite him with his sharp teeth, Jake grabbed the pirate's snout and twisted hard. The Vargan captain howled in pain and rage. He threw Jake across the room, but the human rolled with the impact and came up ready to fight. "You think you're better than us," Thornfield growled, blood running from his injured nose. "But you're just another killer, just like me." "No," Jake said, dodging another attack. "I kill to protect people. You kill because you enjoy it." Jake feinted, left, then moved right. When Thornfield lunged at him, Jake was ready. He grabbed the pirate captain's arm and used a combat technique he had learned in the Marines. Thornfield's arm broke with a loud crack. The Vargan fell to his knees, holding his broken arm and whimpering. Around the cargo bay, the remaining pirates looked at their defeated leader and then at the human who had beaten him. "Anyone else want to try?" Jake asked, his weapon ready. The pirates dropped their weapons and raised their hands. They had seen enough. The stories about humans were true. "Zara," Jake called into his radio, "bring the ship to docking bay 7. We're leaving." "On my way," came her reply. "Nice work, boss." Jake helped Lisa get the last of the prisoners toward the exit. The older man who had trouble walking was leaning on 2 younger prisoners. The little girl had stopped crying and was holding Lisa's hand. "Is it over?" Lisa asked. "It's over," Jake confirmed. They reached docking bay 7 just as the Starfall arrived. Bobby and Rex were already aboard, and Zara had the engines warming up. The rescued prisoners climbed aboard quickly, eager to get away from Black Rock Station. Jake was the last one on the ship. As they pulled away from the station, he looked back at the damaged asteroid. Emergency lights flickered across its surface. Several sections were completely dark where Rex's explosions had knocked out the power. "What happens now?" Lisa asked. "Now we take you home," Jake said, "and these people get back to their families." The ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving Black Rock Station behind. Within hours, news of what had happened spread throughout the galaxy. The story grew with each telling. A single human had attacked the most dangerous pirate base in known space. He had rescued 21 prisoners and defeated Captain Thornfield's entire organization. Some species were impressed, others were terrified. All of them realized that humans were not like other races. When humans decided to fight, They did not stop until they won or died trying. 3 weeks later, Jake stood in Dr. Alan Pierce's office on Earth. Lisa's father was a small, quiet man who looked nothing like his brave daughter, but his eyes were sharp and intelligent. "The Galactic Council met yesterday," Dr. Pierce said. "They voted to offer humanity full membership." "Because they're afraid of us?" Jake asked. "Because they respect us," Dr. Pierce replied. "What you did at Black Rock Station showed them that humans will fight to protect innocent people, even when those people aren't human." Jake nodded slowly. "What about my reputation? The Reaper of Vega Prime?" Dr. Pierce smiled. "The galaxy still fears that name, but now they also know what it really means. It means that somewhere out there is a human who will come for anyone who hurts the innocent." Jake looked out the window at Earth's blue sky. For the first time in years, he felt at peace. His reputation as a killer would never go away, but maybe, just maybe, he could use that reputation to protect people instead of frightening them. The galaxy had learned to fear humans. Now it was time for them to learn something else. It was time for them to learn that humans made the best friends and the worst enemies in the known universe, and Jake Morrison would make sure they never forgot it.